So you understand English okay, you understand French okay, but can you understand a bilingual 6-year-old's Franglish? I took my 6-year-old for a haircut the other day and she had his hair all combed up, like wet and standing up, and it was kind of in the shape of a triangle on his head. And so my 6-year-old says, "Oh, it looks like an anniversary hat." And the hairdresser is like, "An anniversary hat?" And I was sitting on the couch kind of far away. I wasn't like really in the conversation. I was just waiting for him to get his hair cut. And I'm just sitting there snickering because I know exactly what he means, which is a birthday hat. But he said anniversary. He didn't say birthday because he had a little bilingual brain fart with anniversaire, which is birthday in French. Now, this type of error I would actually probably correct if I were like there in the conversation, but I would have corrected it if I had been, just because there is obviously like a breakdown of communication happening here. But generally, I don't correct a lot of errors unless I notice a pattern. And one pattern that I was noticing a lot last year was both my kids not choosing the correct verb with avoir versus être. For example, they were always saying j'ai tombé, je m'ai fait mal. So that was one error I really decided to target, and especially with the reflexive verbs when they're saying je me. So, for example, they were both saying all the time je m'ai fait mal. And the way I would go about correcting it was just with a gentle verbal reminder, je me, and then they would go, "Ah, je me suis fait mal." I wanted to give a little update on that because my son has pretty much eradicated this error from his speech. It might still slip in from time to time, but very, very rarely. So the next one that we're working on is using the correct gender for il versus elle in the third person plural, because I think this is just because in his little American brain, they is il with an S. Because he tends to get the gender of the adjective correct. Like, for example, if we're talking about flowers, he'll be like, "Oh, ils sont trop belles." So, like, he knows that fleur is feminine, but for some reason, they are so pretty just is il. So that is one that I am targeting right now. Just gently correct it with one word. So if he says ils sont trop belles, I'll say elles, and then he corrects it. He's starting to catch on. He goes, "Oh, elles sont trop belles." But again, this is pretty much the only category of errors that I'm working on him with right now. My 3-year-old, we're still working on the je me suis instead of je m'ai. But like I said, we're not even working on that at all with my 6-year-old anymore. So these gender related errors are the only ones we're working on right now because, like I said, there's a pattern that I want to make sure doesn't become a fossilized error. And the last thing I want is my kids to get overwhelmed and resentful and not want to speak French anymore because I'm being too nitpicky.